Okay, thank you so much. Delighted to be here. Let me get this queued up. You should probably now see a totally blank screen. And hopefully something on that screen at this point. So, inspiring change with data visualization, and subtitle of this is "You may not change the world, but you can change your organization." I'm the founder, principal, sole employee of Data Revelations. Indeed, I was Tableau's inaugural Iron Viz champion. That was back in 1964 for the IBM 360. Tableau for the IBM 360 was an incredible product. This group knows Tableau Zen Master. That's an actual thing. If I hand it to someone who's not in the community and I hand them a card, although who's handing cards to anybody right now? Hand somebody a card and says Tableau Zen Master, they probably think, God, this guy's a complete tool. You know, who puts Tableau Zen Master on his own card? I am certainly very proud of those two achievements, Iron Viz and Tableau Zen Master. But the thing I'm most proud of within the data visualization community is being one of the three authors of the Big Book of Dashboards. I've started putting this slide in every presentation I give, and that is, you are encouraged to disagree with me. Good stuff happens as we debate these things. So if you think I'm mistaken, or what any of that I'm saying doesn't align with your experience, I'd like you to articulate that. I won't be able to see it in the chat right now, but maybe in Q&A, or you can send me an email. But good stuff happens when we debate this stuff. Speaking of debating things, just if you could type into chat, how many of you have seen this data visualization? If you've seen it, give me a yes.
Lots of
Yep,
friendlies here,
I'm not
Steve.
surprised. This is a very, this is a particularly well-schooled and erudite Tableau user group and steeped in data visualization. And Edward Tufte, the author of The Visual Display of Quantitative Data and Beautiful Evidence and several other books, has described this as perhaps the best statistical graph ever drawn. Although, you know, I don't know anyone who can look at this thing and know immediately what's going on, what it's about. Someone has to walk you through it. But it said, this may be the best statistical graph ever drawn. And it's shown in practically every data visualization class and webinar and seminar and presentation. How many of you have seen this? If you've seen the Nightingale rows, she actually referred to them as wedges. If you've seen this, let me know. So Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing, was also a polymath and extremely well steeped in statistics and science, and made some stunning data visualizations, including this one, which is showing the changing sanitary conditions at the Scutari Hospital in Turkey during the Crimean War. This data visualization changed the British healthcare system. And I look at it and I think, well, couldn't you have displayed this as a bar chart? And a lot of pundits, including friend and colleague and someone whose work I cannot recommend enough, Alberto Cairo, wrote this. I believe Nightingale's goal wasn't just to inform, but also to persuade with an intriguing, unusual, beautiful picture. A bar graph conveys the same message effectively, but it may not be as attractive to the eye. So I will see people going to lectures, reading books, and pundits touting the Menard visualization, the John Snow cholera map, the Nightingale rows, and they've got to come away from this thinking, I guess I should be making charts like these, right? No, you shouldn't be making charts like these. In fact, in my head, I'm going to channel comedian Lewis Black, who would say, no, you shouldn't be making charts like these. There, that felt better. Critical. You must be thinking about who is your audience and what's the message? What are you trying to tell them? And I've got to tell you, Menard and Nightingale absolutely knew their audiences. Menard's expectation was someone would be sitting at a sophisticated, educated person sitting at a drawing room table with a ruler. So that person, and I'm going to say he because at the time it was probably he, thank goodness for people like Nightingale saying, no, we can do as good, if not better, with a ruler, measuring the legend and then comparing it to the chart. Can you imagine showing the Nightingale chart to a busy executive right now, and they're saying, oh my God, this looks amazing. Let me get my protractor so I can better understand this. So the problem for me is a lack of connecting the dots and understanding, wait a minute, how can I take that and apply it to my work now? And you're probably not going to. There are some cases where a flow map can be used in modern data visualization. I'm going to show you one. But what I think people are starved for with these things are looking for real world examples. So I'd like to share some with you where things that they may not have changed the world, but they absolutely changed their organizations. So I want to discuss the company Simp. They're a French manufacturer that designs technical outdoor clothing. The e-commerce division of the company needed a way to monitor on a daily basis click-to-purchase activity for every product it offers via its website. Most important measures, conversion rate and how much they spend. This is the built-in dashboard that came with the whole system. And you know, I've got to say it's attractively formatted. It is completely useless. They cannot glean any insights from this thing. They're looking at it. They want to know what's going on in their business, but it didn't help them at all. Enter Dorian Benatu from Romania and his firm Canonicalize. There we go. I love his work. And I love this dashboard. It's a little more nuanced than a lot of the stuff that I'll be showing today, but felt it was worth going into. So let me focus on the top of the dashboard. First of all, we have the big ass numbers at the top, or bands, saying here are 3 key metrics, and I'm going to tell you what the colors mean. The teal means this, the pinkish means this, and the gray means this. So conversion rate, conversions, and the number of sessions, the number of interactions. So we can see, hey, we had a lot of interactions via, cost per click. And this is the number of actual conversions, that little small pink bar. And this thermometer chart here indicates we only have 3.4% conversions. Versus here, look at the length of that bar. It's about the same for email, but the overall, the gray bar is a lot wider. So that's why we're getting in that thermometer chart, we're seeing it way more filled. So that's the top part. Here's the bottom part of the dashboard. And again, just a great job of explaining what these things mean. This explains, hey, unique purchases divided by detailed views, that's the product conversion rate. This thing, holy crap. This is a bar in bar chart. I can count on one hand where I've seen that work, but it's the views, the adds to cart, and the purchases. Wow, what a great way to show that. And then here is the spend that is on the stuff. And then I love the power of the little red dot going, oh, you got a problem right here, because you're not getting a lot of conversions, but you're spending a lot of money. And the impact was ridiculous. Completely changed the way the company runs its e-commerce business. The CEO, the head of operations, the head of marketing review this every morning. Also, I got to show you something that I think he did really well. It's brilliant because I see it happen all the time in data visualization, this particular issue. Here is something that I will, Jeff Schaefer and I give workshops on the Big Book of Dashboards, and this is an assignment that we do towards the end where we say, hey, we want you to visualize some data, including this. And we want you to show how much ahead or behind goal is north, south, east, and west. How would you show that? And most people come up with this mechanism. Oh, I can see how far below goal I am, how far above goal I am. But astute attendees, and there are lots of astute attendees that attend this workshop, will say, but wait a second, what are the actual goals? It looks like east is really short of hitting its goal, but was its goal $50,000 or $50 million? And is west more than making up for it? So in fact, this Maybe you want to show it this way, where the vertical line is individualized for each of the different regions. And you can see east, you know, I'll change my little clicker here so we can focus on it. East, they don't have a big goal. So west exceeding its goal more than makes up for it. Well, how does Dorian handle this? He did both. He's showing the actual here and the percentages, and in a really compact area in a way that would only take him about a minute to explain to a stakeholder how to read. So I've got a lot more examples, including there's a great one from JLL, the firm where Simon Beaumont works, and I know Simon has joined us today. Don't have time to show that one. What I do is want to show you 3 quick ones where it's just a single visualization that made a difference. One chart that ended up creating sort of shock and awe. And I'm going to start with your own Nelson Davis, and was tasked with helping an airline better get a handle on the different markets, where a market is defined as connecting between 2 cities. And how do I get from Raleigh-Durham to Seattle, given that there are no direct flights? And what he was tasked with doing was, before he got there, they print out 5 11 by 17 spreadsheets, these enormous things, and they'd find a number on one spreadsheet and look it up on a different spreadsheet and try to glean understanding from it. He was asked, hey, can you at least just put everything in one place so we can see it all at the same time? So here's a snippet of a rather mammoth dashboard that he put together. And, but, he was frustrated. He's saying, wait a second, this is just a bunch of numbers. Hey, it's great, and they're all in one place, but it's just a bunch of numbers. Why not show this on a map? To which they responded, well, we tried a map, it didn't work. Please don't try making a map again. Well, because the map they created was just, showed the United States, and it just had a bunch of cities on it. They hadn't seen the right map. They hadn't seen what would happen if you had a flow map. So you can imagine what Nelson did. Yes, he channeled Charles Minard, but he didn't put that thing in there. He put this in there, and it had an incredible reaction from the people who knew the numbers and looking at this, but they had never really seen the degree to which this Atlanta to Seattle market was so important to the bottom line. It wasn't that Nelson had discovered a new number. They had always known the numbers. It was seeing it this way, one single chart that just changed everything. And they realized, oh my gosh, we have to protect this because of the revenue it's producing. And how do they reward Nelson? By asking him to visualize a whole bunch of different markets the same way. All right, let's move to another good friend of Tableau, someone who's been involved with Tableau for a long time. This comes from Greg Lewandowski, and does wonderful work. And the company he was working for had over 25,000 different partners. And they wanted to get a handle on, well, who are our biggest partners? So someone said, you know what? Let's see our top 10 partners, our top 25 partners, our top 50 partners. And Greg said, why are you doing that? Why, those are arbitrary numbers. Why don't we look to see how many partners make up the first 25% of our income? If you were to rank them from highest to lowest, and then the next 25% of our income. And when he told me about this, I said, oh, I know where you're going with this. This is going to be a Pareto chart, where you're going to see that 80% of your income is coming from 20% of your partners. He then showed me the actual data, and it's like, whoa, 80% of the income is just coming from 1% of the partners. But let me show you how he ended up showing it to people, because it's pretty potent. And he started with this. Here are all our partners. That's 25,000 dots. And Nelson, could you do me a favor? Make sure I didn't over or undercount this, especially with an election coming up. I want to make sure they're exactly 25,000.
2,
Thank you.
3.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, if you can mute your microphone while you're doing that, that would be great. He said, here are the top partners that are responsible for 25% of our income. Here are the top partners that are responsible for 75% of our income. Greg referred to this as the jawbreaker because it was the sound of people's jaws dropping and hitting the table when they saw it this way. Yes, they just applied two different filters. It wasn't just one chart, but it engendered or generated a whole bunch of discussions around this, which is, my gosh, so few are responsible for so much of our income. These top tier partners, were they always there? Were they lower tier? Did they move into something higher? What happened with this? That's a great dashboard or visualization, by the way. One that doesn't just answer questions, but gets you thinking about a whole bunch of things you hadn't considered before. Now, I am keenly aware that one of the most esteemed Tableau user groups in the world, I'm advocating the use of a packed bubble chart, which is pretty rare. But it's kind of this particular use case of it. I don't need to make exact comparisons. Do I need to know that's 2,400 times as big as that thing, or it's 2,600 times as big? So if you were to ask me, how many times out of 100 should I use a bar or line chart for something eye-catching? I would say, 99 times out of 100, use the bar chart. But how would I express that? Probably like this. I don't need to make an exact comparison. It's just this massive amount. In any case, Greg's visualization was super simple, and it just struck a chord. Last one, I wish I could show the actual use case for this, but I didn't get permission. It's around resource scheduling, and an entity that believed they'd had to embark on a massive construction project. Let's say it was for conference rooms. Oh my gosh, we don't have enough conference rooms. We need either convert things or build a new building to accommodate this. And part of the problem was they kind of had siloed scheduling, like, oh, okay, I kind of own these conference rooms and you own those. So I'm going to schedule these things first and you're going to schedule those. And then the belief was that, there aren't enough rooms. And it was because you have these kind of, I own these 8 rooms, you own those 12, and it wasn't centralized or pooled scheduling. So they brought in an expert on this, on space utilization, and said, here's what you're actually doing. This is your capacity right now. Your goal, by the way, I kind of like this. It's a heat map with a marginal histogram along the top and along the side. And your goal is to, for these things to be occupied. Otherwise, it's wasted space. You want to be at 65%. So you've got the hour of the day along the top, you got the day of the week along the side. And said, because you're scheduling, this is your scheduling now, this is what it would be if you use a pooled scheduling system. Things would be filled, you'd still have plenty of capacity. And this is the second time that I've seen a resource scheduling system make a huge difference. No one believes it until they see it visualized this way. Same thing happened in one of the chapters for the Big Book of Dashboards, the operating room utilization. They didn't believe it until they saw, this is what you had, this is what it would be if you do this right. The impact in all of these cases was just a single chart, maybe applying a filter, and it had everybody give an aha. I do want to show a couple of things that haven't come to and the possibilities when you are a possibilist. And those of you who know that word possibilist know I must be talking about Hans Rosling. Hans Rosling was a Swedish professor of global health who, using data, stunning visualizations, and ridiculous homespun charm, changed the way people understood the world. I first became aware, as I think a lot of people did, with the TED Talk that he did in 2006, one of the most watched TED Talks ever. I show it in all of my workshops. In his book, Factfulness, which came out shortly after his death in 2017, Rosling describes himself as a possibilist. People often call me an optimist because I show them the enormous progress they didn't know about. By the way, just a side note, read Factfulness. It will make you feel a lot better about the world at a time when I think everyone wants to feel that way. In any case, being called an optimist, that makes me angry. I'm not an optimist. That makes me sound naive. I'm a very serious possibilist. That's something I made up. It means someone who's neither hopes without reason nor fears without reason, someone who constantly resists the overdramatic worldview. As a possibilist, I see all the progress, and it fills me with conviction and hope that further progress is possible. This is not optimistic. It is having a clear and reasonable idea about how things are. It is having a worldview that is constructive and useful. So I want to show you three possible lists within the data visualization community. First one comes from Klaus Schulze, Iron Viz champion, Tableau Zen master, professor of accounting and financial controls in Münster, Germany. And he wanted people, he was frustrated not so much by accountants clinging to their spreadsheets, but that how difficult it was for people not steeped in accounting to understand balance sheets, profit and loss statements, etc. So we looked at the consolidated income statement of Alphabet Inc. Alphabet Inc. is the parent company of Google and has been working for quite a while to figure out, is there a way that I can make this have a visual impact that makes it clearer? He came up with this recently, and it just kicks ass. I would love to get into the particulars of it, but within a minute, I could explain to a layperson what the things mean, the inflows, the outflows, where money's coming from, where they're going, at each stage, how much, what our gross profit is, our net profit is, etc. And ridiculously clear. He's taken that whole bunch of numbers, and he still has his lovely numbers here, the same numbers, but has visualized it in a really compelling fashion. Next up comes from Amanda Mcculloch. She is one of my partners in crime, along with Andy Cockreeve and Jeff Schaefer in Chart Chat, and she wanted to imagine lab test results. After her father had a second bout of kidney cancer, she submitted to genetic testing to see if she had the same genetic mutation. And it ends up she did, called Lynch syndrome. And she got something like this back. And it's a list of all these different body parts and the risk of cancer associated with it. And it was, oh my God, there's a lot of red. And oh my God, look at that number, an 82%. I have a 4 out of 5 chance of getting cancer. It was not well explained. Now, she, in addition to having a master's in public health, a statistical background, data visualization, she could make sense of this, but it was just, she thought it was criminal that why not present it like this, show the wide range of risk. And if you're wondering why is the general population, gosh, we know exactly what, it is in the general population, but your risk could be as low as this and as high as this. It's just the amount of data that they have. They just don't have that many people with that particular genetic marker. So there's a high margin of error. Last one comes from reimagining patient health histories. I don't know how many times you've gone to a new doctor, you're trying to get to the bottom of something, and you have to go through your entire health history and recite it. It can be overwhelming with people with rare, mysterious, or complicated health issues to relate their health histories to doctors. People feel pressured to remember what happened. The details are often trapped in medical records. Often, I know a lot of people don't feel like they're being taken seriously. So Katie McCurdy, founder of Pictol Health, has started, she's done this for 50 plus individuals and helped them visualize their particular stories. And she's looking to scale this. I can't get into the details of this, but the amount of information that's clear and related in a compact amount of space is truly stunning. And what she reports is that her clients, doctors are no longer just seeing them, they're being heard because of something like this. So I'm going to end briefly, but I want to share first my story around data visualization and then kind of discuss, well, what is your story going to be? People at the Atlanta TUG, I think this is the 3rd time I've presented, they know my background. If you go to my website and go to the About page, you'll discover, hey, my background is as a musician. And there was a long hiatus, but in 2004, I discovered Motown music. I had always been into the Beatles, I'd been into jazz and Broadway, hadn't really loved Motown, but someone gave me a DVD of Standing in the Shadows of Motown. It is the mother of all music documentaries. It's about the Funk Brothers, the band that played, the backup band that played on more #1 hits than the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and the Rolling Stones combined. Now, I'm an electric bass player, and I absolutely fell in love with the first call bass player, the guy who laid down the grooves on all of these different tunes. His name was James Jamerson. And I became totally immersed in this. I transcribed all the music. I learned how to play this stuff. And a year later, I got hired to play in a really good local R&B band. And of course, I'm really nervous. This is the first night playing with the band. First set goes great. Second set, it's going to open with My Girl. Now, My Girl, if you know, hopefully if you're young, you had good parents and they exposed you to this type of music. In any case, it's a song by The Temptations. And it begins with a bass solo. So I'm going to play you a little bit of My Girl. At least I hope. Oh, system audio is not working.
Steve, we heard it, man. I was jamming to it.
Oh, outstanding. Very relieved. Okay. I should just keep, you know what, don't do the rest of the thing, just play the rest of it. There we go. In any case, people went nuts. Within 6 notes, everyone was up on the dance floor. I'm holding my bass, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at other people in the band and going, wow. I literally moved people, and I wanted to do that again and again and again. All right, let's fast forward. It's the year 2014. Let me give you the setup for this. I'm working with a major healthcare company. They have data on thousands of companies and millions of people, and they were desperately trying to get people to buy into a system where they would ensure that employees and their families were compliant and mindful of nutrition. The cost savings and the life savings could be significant. How can they get people to buy into this? And they targeted the companies that had really bad incidents of things. So they were saying, how are we going to get this company to take this seriously? And they showed them slides. The incidence of diabetes in your organization is 18.5%. The average of all organizations is 4.9%. Or you rank 782 out of 790. It didn't strike a chord. They got it, but they didn't get it. They didn't feel it. They didn't have the flow map experience of like what Nelson had displayed. So we created a series of visualizations for them. We started with this, saying, that is 790 different companies, different organizations like yours, similar industry, similar part of the country. You know, it's a little hard to see because so many of the dots are overlapping. So let's scatter them out. So you can see a lot of the dots are clustering at the bottom. And in fact, you want to be at the bottom. You want the incidence of diabetes to be as low as possible. So we then showed this. Here's the 25th percentile, the 50th percentile, the 70th percentile. So if you're up here, you're in the bottom 1%. I know you're thinking, well, wait a minute, shouldn't that be the top? No, this is something highly undesirable, an incidence of disease in your organization. So we kind of queued this up and said, you got it? That's 790 companies. Most of them are down at the bottom. Where is your organization? And it's here. And the reaction was palpable. For the first time, people really understood what it meant to be ranked 782 out of 790. The impact was, as I described, it's we get it. We want to do something about it. And in this case, I figuratively moved people. But I had the same feeling I did when I was on the bandstand that night was, I want to do that again and again and again. Well, what is your story going to be with this? You know, especially so many people in this organization are already good at data visualization, and you're going to get better through your association with this organization. Well, always remember, think about who is your audience, as did Menard and Nightingale, as did my colleagues and I when I dealt with that healthcare organization. What's the message? And I would say, always strive to provide the greatest degree of understanding with the least amount of effort. You may not change the world, but you absolutely can change your organization. And I know Paul is going to be talking about data literacy. A huge part of getting that win is making sure your organization appreciates the value that can come from charts and dashboards. And I'm excited to announce something publicly. I've not shared this image yet, except amongst a few people I've emailed. Thank you. New book is coming out, really aimed much more at the consumer of charts and dashboards, more so than the creator. The big picture, how to use data visualization to make better decisions faster. And that is, so the cover's done, the book isn't. And that is coming out in April of 2021. Hey, if you want to disagree with me, chime in or whatever, I'd love to hear from you. Come visit datarevelations.com, find out about workshops. You can follow me on Twitter, and delighted to jam with people either now or at a little pressed for time. We'll do it after, you know what, let's all meet at a virtual happy hour sometime. So with that, let me stop sharing the screen, and thank you, Atlanta Tug, for having me today.
Steve, such a great job. Really phenomenal work that you've shared. I'm honored that I got to be a part of that. That's super cool. We have time for, we're going to take 2 very quick questions, and then we're going to leave the questions open for you if you want to engage with the folks that are asking questions. You also got some great feedback coming through the chat as well. So the quick question, this is coming from Simon Beaumont. Question for Steve: does he feel animation has a place in the workplace? And if so, has he seen examples in the wild?
It is really hard not to pull Richard Nixon, who, when he was thinking about how he was going to answer something, would say, well, let me say this about that. So my response is the same as Ben Jones and other people, which is, great question. In fact, it's a really good question, but trying to formulate the answer. So one of the things I am constantly fighting organizations is, you know, you do way better if you printed less and clicked more. And instead of having these predefined decks that have I've seen 500-page decks, which has every different region and sub-region and filtering, and curate the key findings, top 10 things, then let people explore the dashboard. Animation is going to do a lot to show how things change when you apply filters, things like that. I think less so from a Hans Rosling Gapminder type of thing, but more from a pre-attentive attribute. I'm seeing how something is changing. I use that to explain jittering, by the way, is that I'll have everything in a strip plot, and I'll click something and people will see the dot scatter and go, oh, now I understand. There's no difference between the dot that goes from the left to the right. You just kind of push them out so that they're not all smushed on top of each other. So that's a great, simple way to use animation, and it gets the aha.
That's excellent. I've got one more question for you, Steve. Okay, this one is from Vince. All right, Vince is asking, when you used Nelson's Viz that had the map, but also like the table with all the numbers, you mentioned it was a useless table, but is there a place in DataViz for showing both in the same visualization?
So interesting, and Nelson may want to chime in. Usually one has to wean people off something which is a little stronger to see. For me, the gateway drug to data visualization is the highlight table. So, and I've got a whole fun thing with, I show an example around the propensity of a certain person to tweet. And you'll have the time of the day and the day of the week. And if you just show it as numbers, gee, I'm having trouble seeing something. You then make it a highlight table and you have the really deep pockets of color. Oh, they still have their numbers that they cling to, but they can get a little bit more. Then you build a marginal histogram around it and they go, oh, these bar charts that are being put around this thing, this is so even more useful. So we saw that with that resource planning example, just numbers, then highlight table, then the marginal histogram around it. I would say my bet is, you know, as they get more and more comfortable with visualization, you will probably see fewer and fewer just text tables sitting in a dashboard. That's my guess. Nelson, you can certainly weigh
Steve,
in.
I think you nailed it. The thing that I would kind of say is, and Paul's going to talk about it in a minute, but the data literacy component of this, right? You know, we all read, you know, see spot run when we were first learning how to read. And to your point, if somebody's very used to numbers, you know, we kind of need to pull them along. You know, we can't do the Florence Nightingale visualization out of the box. And so I think there is a maturity that comes with the experience. So I echo exactly what you're saying. Awesome.